No, you are not imagining it. Making friends as an adult is a lot harder than it was when you were a kid, but don't worry, I have some tips to help you along the way. A lot of people worry that they're not good conversationalists, they're not extroverts, they're just really, they clam up when they're around people. And all of that may be true, but you can always get better. And one of the biggest tips I can tell you is to get curious. If you have a natural sense of curiosity, that is fantastic. And if you don't, you can maybe cultivate it. I am someone who just naturally is curious about things that aren't like my life. And so if I hear somebody has a job that I don't know about, I ask them questions because that really is the key, to ask questions and to be genuine that you want to hear more about what they have to say. A few years back, I'm on the dating apps, and I met this guy who was a paranormal investigator. Oh, a ghostbuster. Oh my God. And I didn't actually go ahead and meet him because I don't know if you know anything about Los Angeles, but I would have had to cross like the 101 and 405 interchange, which is literally the worst interchange in the entire country. So that wasn't going to work. Despite the whole Ghostbuster thing, it just wasn't going to work. If he'd been Colin Firth, it wouldn't have worked. Although if it had been Colin Firth, I probably would have asked him to move. But the point is, I had so many questions just from hearing about his job. If we had gone on that first date, we would have been talking the whole time because I just wouldn't be able to stop until all my questions were answered. Just in case you don't meet Ghostbusters in your day to day life, you can still ask the normal questions of like, what do you do for a living? Where are you from? But to get the conversation going further, you can add something like, oh, what do you love about your job? What do you hate about your job? What's your dream job? Things like that, that all of a sudden will make people stop and think because they're just expecting the normal, like, what kind of music do you like, whatever. But when you actually ask people genuine questions about what they just said, and again, the old standbys can be, what's your favorite part of that? What's your least favorite part of that? What do you love? What do you hate? Those are questions that generally make people stop and think, and you can get into a real conversation. So just try to get a natural curiosity about people, but in the meantime, as you're exercising those muscles, that will help. My next suggestion is when you're going out in the real world to take out your earbuds, like really be present for where you're going. And I know there's a segment of this audience that's going to be like, what? Oh, I can't do that. Yes, you can, and you must. There is an epidemic of loneliness in the US, and I firmly believe it's not just that people don't have like really close friends they can go do things with. I think it's because there's a lack of human interaction. Because there are so many times that I'll go out and I don't use earbuds because I'm afraid I'm going to go deaf. And also, I'm too cheap to buy them. I usually have a book with me, uh, but I will get into conversations with people. They don't need to be long. I mean, my mother was sort of the queen, is the queen of sort of like, she'll go to the cashier and they'll be like, may I help you? Well, I was born on a farm in 1923. We don't need the whole story. We just need, she just said, can I help you? But she has the right idea, which is to get into conversations with people. One of my favorites was I was going to the bank one day, and this guy opened the door for me, and he was the actor Jamie McShane. Now, that name might not mean anything to you, but if you look him up on IMDb, he's one of those guys who's been in everything. And I blurted out, "You stole Jax Teller's baby?" Because he had this really great run on Sons of Anarchy, which is one of my favorite shows. And he's like, "Yeah, I did." And we got into a conversation in line at the bank. This is not something, we did not become friends with this. This is not a romantic thing. It was just two people having a conversation about my favorite show and about his life as an actor. And it was a long line. So maybe for his sanity, maybe he should have had the earbuds in to prevent this. But my point is that would never have happened if I had had earbuds in or if he had. Another thing that I can think of, I was at a car wash, and everybody else, they're on the phone and the whole thing. And I did have my book with me, but this guy who was sitting next to me, and he was probably, I don't know, like maybe 30 or something, so like 20 years younger than I was at the time. And he was really sweet, and he said, "Can I ask you something?" I said, "Sure." And he was trying to figure out what to buy his girlfriends, and so he was asking me for suggestions. And English was not his native language, but he speaking it very well, and he was trying really hard. And also, I'd like to point out he spoke English much better than I spoke any other language other than English. So, kudos for him. But it was this really sweet conversation. And again, this was not like, oh, I'm going to be friends with this guy. It was just this interlude that we used to have more often in the world, and it just makes you feel more connected to people. And it helps you practice those social skills, which can be kind of rusty if you haven't done it for a while. Because most of us, like some of us still work from home. We do most of our socializing, like it might be online. It's very rare these days that we actually go out and talk to people in the wild. So if you can do that more, not only will you kind of have this, like, because I still think about that conversation with the guy who was really sweet. And it was just something to make me feel connected with my fellow man, as corny as that sounds, but it was really nice. So, whatever pause, I'll take you out with the earbuds. Although I don't guarantee you're going to run into the guy who stole Jax Teller's baby, but that's a good story too. Volunteering is a great way to meet people for several reasons. One is that you have a task that you're doing. So, unlike a meetup where you're all going to go hiking, but you still have these sort of like, okay, the awkward thing of getting to know people because we want to make friends. This, you have a task. Like if you're working at the Humane Society, you're taking care of an animal, and then you're conversing, you're getting to know your fellow volunteers. I volunteered at the emergency department of a hospital. And so my fellow volunteers and I, we got to know each other through a shift. It was once a week from Friday nights from 9 p.m. to 1 a.m., which is super interesting. And it didn't it didn't seem like we were trying to make friends. We just became friends because we had this experience in common. Also, volunteers tend to be kind of nice people because they're volunteering their time someplace. So, ideally, you want to choose something where you have to show up someplace and do something with your fellow man, as opposed to what I did on my most recent one, which was a great volunteer position, but it was just basically me sitting at home writing, which, yay me, but that was not, there were no friends really. Yeah, that didn't work for the friend making thing. But so pick something that ideally you're interested in and that you are going to stick with. And also keep in mind that as we were looking at accumulating more friends, no one person is probably going to be everything to you. Like there are many different types of friendships. There is a bestie who you can definitely call, at 2 a.m., but hopefully don't overdo that too much because even your bestie is going to be like, I need to get up and work. There's some people that you text. There's some people who, you might only see like 3 times a year, but you're going to have the greatest lunch, whatever it is. No one person is probably going to be everything to you. But your goal at this point is to increase the number of people you interact with. And through that process, you will figure out which one of those people is the person you put down as your emergency contact if you don't have an emergency contact. Which one of those people is the person that is guaranteed to make you laugh on a bad day. But it's just, and you might not know that at the beginning, but you just keep on meeting people and letting things develop. And if you volunteer, you will definitely meet people who, are great candidates for being reliable and being in your life. So, and you'll do some good. Some people have a hard time making friends because they're so afraid. They don't think they're good conversationalists and they're so afraid of saying something dumb. Okay. I say dumb things all the time. And I'll tell you one of my dumbest. I was at a wedding. It was 11 years ago. It was two of my friends were getting married and they're awesome. And it's so embarrassing. I didn't have a plus one because I wasn't dating anybody. And I don't blame, I never get a plus one because I'm never dating anyone. And I don't blame the people getting married because who wants some rando showing up? And plus, it's expensive to have somebody you don't know. And then I'd have to be like, oh, I gotta find a date. So I don't mind that at all. So I show up at this wedding. My friends John and Jason were getting married. And I meet this guy. And I think I said, and again, this is John and Jason's wedding. Because I'm saying the stuff that you normally do at a wedding. I'm like, hi, are you a friend of the bride or groom? I, I, and I think it literally was like the third thing I said to this guy after, hi, my name is Maureen. And then, are you a friend of the bride or the groom? And this was 11 years ago when, marriage between, gay or lesbian couples was not as common as it is now. And I didn't know this guy. I had just met him. I didn't know if he thought maybe I was some type of homophobe and I was like trying to make some weird point and why these people would invite me. I don't know. And my expression, I was like, I just like, I was like, "Ooh." And I'm like the most pro LGBTQ person like in the world. I just all of it. I just horrified, and I love John and Jason. I'm like, oh my god, the story's going to get back to them. And the guy I was talking to, God bless him, he got this look on his face, like he didn't. I could tell he was like he was trying not to burst out laughing, but he didn't. And he just said that he was, I don't know, I think he was friends with Jason, or I don't know, I still don't know. And I was just like, yeah, but it was, I think in part because I was such a dumbass, he took mercy on me. And not only did we start chatting, we spent the rest of the wedding together. And he was like, this is not a romantic thing because he's 10 years younger than I am. And I think gay, I don't know. But it, oh yeah. Yeah, but this is not unusual for me. I mean, I say dumb stuff all the time, but you just continue onward. Everybody messes up, and in this particular case, I think maybe it helped us become friends. He's like a Facebook friend of mine, and he posts some of the most interesting things of anybody else on my page. So you do meet people in the most unusual circumstances, and it isn't because everyone's always witty and perfect and the whole thing. Sometimes even when you're a dumbass, you meet super nice people. So do not keep yourself from meeting people, because it's like the quote, and I think it was Wayne Gretzky, but people attribute it to Michael Jordan, but they probably agree. You miss all the shots you don't take. So if your, a fear of making a mistake keeps you inside and not out meeting people, you really have lost me. You've missed out. That's much worse than, having a faux pas, even as big as mine. Oh wow. So don't worry about it. Everyone makes mistakes, and it's just part of conversation. Here's something which might surprise you, and that is making friends is harder for a couple than it is for an individual. Now, this thing kind of chaps my well-toned ass because there are so many things which are easier when you're part of a couple. It really is. Like you get to share the expenses. If there's some weird noise in the middle of the night, you got two people to go investigate. Again, you have the built-in medical emergency contact. Like all that stuff is easier. But I know I've had three separate couple friends who've said to me that they moved someplace and they could not make any friends. And these are all people who are really friendly, and I'm friends with them. So I don't think it's them. But what I think it is it's just harder when you're trying to coordinate multiple schedules. And so, particularly because couples a lot of times like to socialize with other couples, not only are you trying to coordinate like, two or three schedules, oftentimes it's four schedules. And that's almost impossible. I mean, getting four people to be available and, liking to do the same things, pretty much impossible. And particularly in a world where people don't really go out and do stuff that much anyway. So it is much harder. So if you are a member of a couple, I mean, first of all, well, I mean, when I was married, we socialized mostly with couple friends. And so it's understandable. It's also kind of douchey. Like if you are only socializing with other couples, completely douchey. Because there, believe it or not, there's single people out there who are also interesting. Now, for me, as the single person, divorced person, I don't know, unless it's people I've known forever. I don't know how comfortable I would be like at a dinner party where it's like, eight couples and me. That would be a little weird. I have zero problem. Like if it's like just a couple and me going out, I never have felt like a third wheel, or I don't understand people who do that. I have my, like John and Jason, whose wedding I went to. I see them all the time, and I don't think it's weird. Not me not having a date. I don't think they think it's weird. We just have fun together. So, but if you are part of a couple, I strongly suggest, like, through work, through volunteering, whatever, you do meet a person and that can be your friend. Like you can go to lunch with that person. I get it if you want to just spend, your evening times, your weekend times with your spouse. I get it. But there are lunches, there are afternoons, there are different things to do. Now, just so that you are not a bad friend, it's if you do have that single friend and you're part of a couple, it's good if you can stay in touch with that friend, like, like it's, texting or phone calls or whatever it is that you do with your friend. And not just when your spouse or partner is out of town. That's a bad look. Like if you only call them to go out and do things when your partner's gone, no, stop. But you can go out, make your own meet your own friends, and that's much easier if it's a one-on-one thing. And then like if it's the three of you, that's great. If the four of you all get along, wonderful too. But each person you add into this is harder and harder to do this. And I mean, I remember the couple days, it was usually not the case that I would like both people in the couple equally well. And so that's another thing too, is that when you've got four personalities, everybody might not mesh that well. So, you are not imagining it. If you are part of a couple and you're having trouble making friends, you may have to sort of like go make friends individually and, be that way because it is harder. That's the only thing it's I would stop right there. But yeah, it's harder. Thought. And that if you're having a difficult time making friends, it might not be your fault. We can all be better conversationalists. We can get out there more. All that's true. But some people are just jerks and you just can't get through to them. They're out there. I worked on a show and I was a comedy writer. And first of all, comedy writers not exactly the most emotionally healthy people in the world. But the person whose show it was is a fantastic guy. I would walk through fire for this guy. He's really wonderful. But the writing staff, not even the rest of the show, the rest of the people who worked on the show were some of the nicest, coolest people I've worked with in Hollywood, just really great people. But the writing staff, the people I had to spend all my days with, like long, long hours, they were complete assholes. And I remember after months of like trying to break through, not be besties, but just sort of make things a little bit more cordial and just getting nowhere. I remember going into, and we had these two big rooms. I remember going into the other room and like, hey, I'm going to dinner. Anybody want to come with me? And they all stopped what they were doing and they turned around and they looked at me and they all turned back to what they were doing. Like they didn't say anything, but they wanted to make sure they knew that I knew they had heard me, but they weren't going to answer. And I, that, okay. And I think it was at that moment when I'm like, okay, problem definitely not me, it's them. And it did help, I will say, that when I left the show, I got phone calls from basically people from every other department on the show telling me what jerks I worked with in the writer's room. So I was like, okay, that's yes. Yes, I did not argue with any of them. Um, so that is an extreme case. I hope you don't have to deal with people like that, but they are out there. And a lot of times it is just people are insecure, people are having bad days, whatever it is. I mean, they had a lot of bad days, but you can't take it personally if you are really trying and just as you don't break through with people. You're not supposed to be friends with a lot of people, like everybody in the world anyway. But don't take it personally and just continue to be open to friendships and to be curious about the world and to do your best and to have fun, with your fellow man on this journey that we're on. So I guess that's it. If you have liked this, if you have comments, criticism, whatever, please let me know in the comments. And believe in yourself and meet people.